Today, we're going to speak about loss. Isn't that a fun topic? Let's talk about the things that we've lost and how they changed us. Now, this is a rather sensitive topic for a lot of people, especially for me, because, I've gone through a few things here and there, and I've got my paper here to refer to, a little bit of notes, because there's a lot to talk about. It's not going to be a long video because, well, first of all, you probably don't want to hear too much about loss. And second of all, I don't want to dive into it too deeply. But this week marks the 12-year anniversary of losing mom. So I thought, you know what? Seems like an appropriate time to talk about this kind of stuff. So, just some basic losses that I've gone through. There's been a lot, but I'm going to deal with some of them from about a dozen years ago or so. So, in 2013, I lost both of my grandparents. This is on my mom's side. In in January, I lost my grandmother. In October, I lost my grandfather, who was kind of like my dad to me. And also, we lost his sister, who was my last aunt on my mom's side of the family. In 2014, we lost mom. And that's a whole story unto itself, which we won't say how and why, but I'm sure you can figure it out. In 2015, due to grief, I guess you could say, my marriage fell apart. That's another type of loss. And in 2018, I lost my last uncle. And other than my brothers, that was it for my mom's side of the family. So, yeah, a little bit devastating there. And there's more loss that we could talk about, but you know what? We're not going to. We're going to talk about the 5 stages of grief and how death or a breakup of a marriage can change you. And it does, let me tell you. This is not who I was 15 years ago. Okay, so what do we got? We've got sadness, of course. We've got the moping stage. We've got realization stages. But the 5 stages of grief, we've got denial, where you deny that this is actually happening or that it happened. And then you've got your anger stage, where you're really freaking pissed off that this is happening or it's happened or you're going through it. And then you've got the bargaining stage. Everybody knows that. Like, oh boy, if only I had done this, or if I do this, will you stay? That kind of thing. And then the depression sets in. That's the sadness, and then the acceptance. And of course, none of these stages are linear, and they get intertwined. And some people don't go through them at all, right? So there's that. So two types of loss that I've experienced: death, which leads to unfinished questions and conversations. Um, After was gone, she was like the historian of the family. And that meant questions that I had about childhood memories or other things about family history gone. Nobody to ask. She she wasn't there to ask. And even now, a dozen years later, there are times when I just want to give her a call and say, "Hey, Ma, guess what's happening?" And I'm still sad about it. And sometimes I can't believe that she's gone. With the divorce, that was that was an intense type of love that I had. And why did it end? I could go into that, and that'll be an upcoming video because it wasn't good. But that causes or created an identity shift because who was I now that I wasn't a husband? Um, the routine had changed. I had to live somewhere else. We didn't make suppers together. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. And of course, all the future plans gone, disappeared. We were going to build a TARDIS shed in our backyard for winter shovels and all that kind of stuff. You know, the spaceship from the Doctor Who series. We were going to build a TARDIS because we were watching that series together. That never happened. So, what do you learn? What well, I guess really what you learn is what really matters to you in your life, what's important. Um, so, like with the identity shift, I wasn't a son anymore. I still was, obviously, but couldn't call up mom, couldn't call up the grandparents. And my grandfather was like the dad I never had. Like, my dad is still around right now. We were never close growing up because my parents split when I was 5, and that was an identity. I was the kid from the broken home while everybody else's parents were still together. So that was a loss too. So life has been nothing but loss, but that's not the point. Dad doesn't know the same history that my mom would know because that's a different side of the family. And my grandfather, he took me camping, and we went to all kinds of different adventures, and I learned a lot from him. And the last few years of his life, uh, you know, he had had a stroke a few years prior, and it was in the old folks home, and I was living out of town for the last 10 years when this happened. So I would come back to town 2 or 3 times a year and see him, and we'd hang out, and or with whoever, mom or whatever. But the last couple of years of the grandparents, well, especially my grandfather, he wasn't who he was anymore. He kind of looked like a cross between Christopher Plummer and Vincent Price. And he had the little thin pencil mustache that was always groomed super well. He took pride in it. And after he went into the old folks' home, they didn't take care of him like he took care of himself. And he had a big walrus mustache, and I didn't even recognize him. Um, so even though he wasn't gone quite yet, it was a loss because sometimes he remembered me and sometimes he didn't. So let's talk about denial. This can't be happening to my grandfather. You still got years left. He didn't. Anger. Why aren't you taking care of him? Why aren't you fixing his mustache like he would? Bargaining. What if I move back to town and I could take care of him? I could have a place here, and I'd be with him all the time, and he'd get more care. I'd have to change my entire life for that. Should I have? Well, he passed away shortly after, so probably not. Depression. I would never go on the camping trips with him again or go to the meetings that we went to or that kind of stuff. And acceptance. Well, that's the hard part. How do you accept something that you don't want to accept? Same thing with the marriage. Was it my fault that it fell apart? Maybe a lack of communication because I was depressed because of all the losses of my family, but she was not necessarily the best person that I could have married to begin with. So I had to accept that. Let's see. We split up in 2015, and I thought, you know what? I never want to get divorced, so maybe we'll just stay split up, separated, and never get divorced. But 3 years later, after a lot of thought and self reflection and whatnot, I decided, you know what, I better get friggin' divorced because if I ever want to move on with my life, I can't be tied to this chick anymore. So I did. I went through it and got it all done and taken care of. And I'm glad I did. And she's not on my pension, so even better. And what else did I want to say about that? There was something else. Uh, I'm sure it's not important, but yeah. So grief and loss and acceptance and denial and all the different feelings. Um, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. It was about 8 months after uh, the split, I guess you could say, and I was moping around, and my son, he was visiting with me. He was from a previous relationship, not from this marriage. That's a whole nother story. But I was all mopey, and and he's like, "What's the matter, Dad?" And I couldn't believe that he was asking such a question because my life was consumed with my sadness and my misery. And he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, marriage fell apart." And, and then I thought about it and I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's really all that's the problem. Just the marriage. I've got a great place to live. I've got a great job. I've got my kid. I've got my friends. I've got my family. Well, some of the family, my brothers, because all the rest of the family was pretty much gone. But dealing with that too. But he shook me out of my depression and my mopiness because he asked me what was wrong. And it turned out it was only one thing. And that turned me right around. And it took 8 solid months of, what would you call it? Posting memes on Facebook about I married my best friend and I'd do it again, or this is not the end. And, just so much sappy bull that I started to drive myself crazy. I can just imagine what the people reading my memes were thinking. So it snapped me out of it. And was I still sad? For years, I was still sad and searched for that feeling again, that replacement marriage in the girls that I dated. And did I ever find it? You can't find the same thing again. You have to accept that life changes, your routine changes. You're not the same person you were before all of this happened. And do you still get sad? Or do you still think about what could have been done differently? Well, of course you do. Just like with the loss of mom, there's still questions that I have that I'll never have answered. And I have to deal with it. I have to accept it. And it takes a long time, a dozen years. Still think about it quite often. And you know what? That's okay. So, what I want to know from you out there in YouTube land, what kind of loss have you suffered and how did you get over it? Did you get over it? Is it possible to get over it? You don't forget. You kind of move on, but you never, ever really 100% get over it because that's a part of who you are. That's your history. That's part of your life. And that's just the way it is. And next time, I'm going to have a more exciting video for you, maybe about some fun stuff. So until next time, I hope you subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll talk to you again real soon here on The Long Way Around.